Imagine the sound of 200 war drums pounding across the sea. The clash of oars slicing through dark waters. Shouts of men preparing to fight, not only for their lives, but for the future of their faith. It's October 7th, 1571. The Gulf of Patras, near the small fishing port of Lepanto, is about to witness one of the most decisive battles in world history. On the horizon, an enormous fleet of over 250 Ottoman ships appears, stretching farther than the eye can see. They are the terror of the Mediterranean, masters of the sea, feared by every European port city. On the other side, the Holy League, a fragile coalition of Christian forces hastily gathered together, outnumbered, and staring down an enemy that has already been defeated. Cannons roar. Arrows and musket balls pierce the air. Swords crash against shields. In the chaos, a miracle begins to unfold. One that Pope Pius V would later say was won not only by the strength of arms, but by the prayers of the faithful, and above all, by the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This is the story of the Battle of Lepanto, and why the Catholic Church celebrates October 7th as the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. To understand why Lepanto mattered, let's examine the world in 1571. For over 2 centuries, the Ottoman Empire had been expanding steadily into Europe. They had conquered Constantinople in 1453. They spread throughout the Balkans, Hungary, and North Africa. They controlled the Eastern Mediterranean and demanded tribute from Christian states. The Ottoman navy was massive. At its height, it boasted over 300 war galleys, sleek, deadly ships powered by banks of chained rowers. These were floating fortresses with bronze cannons mounted on their decks. By contrast, many European states had let their naval power decline. Venice had strong ships, but was weary of endless wars. Spain was powerful, but stretched thin, fighting conflicts on multiple fronts. The Ottomans weren't just raiding, they were enslaving entire coastal towns. Historians estimate that over 1 million Europeans were captured and sold into slavery by Ottoman corsairs. Every Christian port lived in the fear of sudden attack. The Mediterranean, once called Mare Nostrum, our sea, by the Romans, was quickly becoming a Turkish sea. And so, when the Ottoman Sultan ordered his fleet westward in 1571, his aim was nothing less than total domination. If they won, the road to Rome itself might be open. Against this backdrop, Pope Pius V, a Dominican known for his deep piety and reforming zeal, saw the crisis not only as a political or military threat, but as a spiritual battle. He believed that Christendom itself was at stake. He worked tirelessly to forge an alliance among Christian rulers. It was no easy task. Venice wanted to protect its trade routes. Spain was wary of committing ships. Other states hesitated, but eventually a coalition was formed. Spain, Venice, Genoa, and the Papal States joined together, creating what came to be known as the Holy League. At its head was placed Don Juan of Austria, the 24-year-old half-brother of King Philip II of Spain. Though young, Don Juan was charismatic, brave, and devout. Soldiers and sailors rallied around him, sensing destiny in his leadership. But Pope Pius V knew that ships and swords alone were not enough. He ordered all of Europe to pray the Rosary for victory. Confraternities of the Rosary marched through the streets, chanting Hail Marys. Churches were filled day and night. Even children were encouraged to join, placing the battle in the hands of Our Lady. The Holy League assembled over 200 galleys at Messina, Sicily. On board were about 80,000 men, sailors, soldiers, and oarsmen. Among them was a 24-year-old Spanish soldier named Miguel de Cervantes, who would later write Don Quixote. Cervantes would fight bravely at Lepanto and would be wounded for life, losing the use of his left hand. He later called it the most noble action that men of past centuries, present or future, ever saw. The men of the Holy League knew they were fighting for more than survival. They attended Mass before setting sail, received the sacraments, and were encouraged to pray the Rosary. Don Juan himself placed a banner on his flagship depicting Christ crucified with the words, "In hoc signo vinces," in this sign you shall conquer. The Ottomans, meanwhile, sailed with over 250 galleys and tens of thousands of warriors, including the fierce Janissaries, elite soldiers trained from boyhood. Their commander, Ali Pasha, carried the green banner of the Prophet Muhammad, adorned with sacred inscriptions. The stage was set. At dawn, on October 7th, the fleets sighted each other near Lepanto. The sea glittered with sunlight, but the mood was grim. Both sides knew this was a fight to the death. The Holy League arranged their fleet in a cross-shaped formation, with 4 squadrons. Don Juan commanded the center, flanked by Venetian Admiral Agostino Barbarigo on the left, and Genoese commander Andrea Doria on the right. A reserve force trailed behind. The Ottomans advanced in a long crescent formation, intending to envelope the Christians. When the battle began, cannon fire thundered across the sea. Ships closed in for brutal hand-to-hand combat. Unlike later naval battles, Lepanto was fought almost like a land battle on floating platforms, with grappling hooks, boarding parties, muskets, and swords. The fighting was savage. Galleys collided, crushing rowers beneath their decks. Arrows darkened the sky. Cannonballs ripped through timber and flesh alike. Men screamed prayers as they swung axes and fired pistols at point-blank range. On the Christian left, Admiral Barbarigo was struck in the eye by an arrow, dying at his post, yet his men held firm, turning back on the Ottoman flank. On the right, Andrea Doria's squadron was stretched thin but managed to keep the enemy from circling around. In the center, the fiercest fighting raged. Don Juan's flagship, the Real, rammed Ali Pasha's massive galley. A bloody melee erupted as soldiers swarmed over the decks. For hours, the 2 flagships were locked in combat. At last, Ali Pasha was killed, his head displayed on a pike, and the great green banner of the Ottomans was seized. The sight sent shockwaves of panic through the Ottoman fleet. And then, the wind shifted, literally. A sudden change favored the Holy League, pushing their galleys forward while scattering the Ottomans. With renewed energy, the Christian fleet pressed the attack. By late afternoon, the Ottoman fleet was shattered. Over 200 of their ships were destroyed or captured. More than 30,000 Ottoman soldiers lay dead. The Holy League lost about 7,500 men. Terrible, but far fewer than feared. The Mediterranean, for the first time in a century, was safe from Ottoman dominance. Back in Rome, Pope Pius V was praying the Rosary in the Dominican convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. Suddenly, he rose, went to a window and announced, "The Christian fleet is victorious." Messengers would not arrive with news until days later. The Pope credited this knowledge to divine revelation, and above all, to the intercession of Our Lady. In thanksgiving, he established October 7th as the Feast of Our Lady of Victory, later renamed the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. The Rosary had already been spreading in popularity for centuries, but Lepanto made it a symbol of hope and protection. To this day, Catholics refer to the Rosary as a spiritual weapon, not because of superstition, but because meditating on Christ's life through Mary's eyes draws believers closer to God, strengthens faith, and gives courage. At Lepanto, ordinary people, peasants, merchants, nobles, children, all united in prayer while sailors fought at sea. The victory was seen not just as a military triumph, but as proof that prayer can change history. The Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary is not just about remembering a naval battle, it's about remembering the power of faith when everything seems hopeless. Think of it. A young commander leading an outnumbered fleet, a pope rallying Christians across Europe, and millions praying the Rosary together. Against all odds, they won. And so I ask you, do we still believe in the power of prayer like that today? Do we see the Rosary as a living weapon of faith capable of changing the course of our lives? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Was Lepanto truly a miracle? Do you think the world could see victories like this again through prayer? And please, if you found this story inspiring, hit the like button and subscribe. It may seem small, but it makes a huge difference for this channel. I want to keep telling you great forgotten stories of history and faith, and your support helps me do that.